the whole left is supporting Islamic Nazis in the Middle East who want to not only want to exterminate the Jews, but say so.
Right.
Hitler didn't even have the balls to say that that was the final solution. It was all hidden. These guys shouted from the rooftops, and all these, particularly academics, support them. I believe that American people have a real chance of prevailing. American people are very sensible. And if you look outside the political war zone, people get along. You know, it's quite amazing when you think of it. Here you have a criminal organization, Black Lives Matter, run by America-hating, white-hating, and straight people-hating leftists who've torched 220 cities. You would think there'd be an upsurge of anti-Black racism as a result. There can't even be an argument. The biggest racist organization is the Nation of Islam, but there are lots of others, including Black Lives Matter. You know, they have the ear of the White House. The White House is talking about systemic racism, which is completely a myth. If there were systemic racism in America, it would be clearly illegal. I mean, there is systemic racism. Affirmative action is systemic racism. And the Biden administration's equity policies are systemically racist. But if there were in police departments, of which there are 18,000 instances of systemic racism, there'd be a tsunami of lawsuits and huge damages paid. We're talking billions. There are no such lawsuits or damages because there is no systemic racism. And yet to say this in public, you know, you risk your life, basically.
Yeah. I personally, I don't shy away from saying what I think about systemic racism being a widespread conspiracy theory.
Well, but most sensible people, unlike us, are observant of these dangers, and many have paid a terrible price.
And I think a lot.
I was just watching on 30 for 30, which is an ESPN sports series. They have a 3 hours of the Celtics versus the Lakers. And I won't even name, because I can't remember his name, the Black Laker, who says there's a racial issue. And actually at the time people said there was. The Celtics have, in this series, had 2 white players, three actually. Danny Ainge was up on the bench. But they had McHale,
right,
and
Larry Bird.
Larry Bird. So that makes it a racial issue. It's just insanity.
Yeah, I think a lot of
and the Lakers had one at least. They had Rambis.
Yeah, they had Kurt Rambis. He was the token white guy on the team. I think a lot of Americans secretly agree with our views on systemic racism and Black lives.
Well, I think that's
You're terrified to say something.
Yeah. Yeah, we live in a proto-fascist state. The Biden administration is a fascist administration. The January 6th pogrom is a prime example. That's the Reichstag fire all over again. You demonize the opposition, and they're ruthless. I mean, the people have. I just saw this thing on Tucker of this young man who committed suicide. Oh, he just walked in an open door, escorted by police into the Capitol, and they want him. I forget what they wanted to put him in jail for 6 to 12 months or something and ruin his life. Could have killed himself.
Right.
These are evil people, the Pelosi's, the Bidens. I mean, Biden is guilty of the greatest crime against America in its history, which is destroying the southern border.
Yeah.
Letting 2 million unvetted foreigners a year whom we don't know anything about, but we do know they're drug runners, they're sex traffickers, they're fentanyl peddlers, all these, there'll be thousands of deaths that Biden will have been the direct causer of, or the indirect causer of, if you like.
Yeah. So,
and everybody on television talk, they say, you know, like he is a bumbling idiot, but that's not the point. He's a criminal. He's a criminal. I mean, of course, Putin has set the standard for criminality, although he really hasn't. The Iranians.
Yeah, much more.
Iranian mullahs. But it's just, it leaves you kind of speechless.
Yeah.
I mean, you wonder what intellectual arguments are worth.
So do you know this upcoming documentary by Dinesh D'Souza, 2000 Mules?
No, I can't wait for it.
Do you think when that comes out, it'll have an impact?
Remarkable work. He's got 3 books about the Nazi roots of the Democrat Party, liberalism. The fact that it's not only are the party of slavery and segregation, but they've created a new plantation system, which Republicans are remarkably silent about, which is the Democrats control 100% every major inner city in America and are 100% responsible for every injustice in the inner city, including the off the charts murder rates, all traceable to the Democrat Party.
Yeah, I think that particular issue is actually one of the best ways to cast some doubt in the minds of current leftists or Democrats, is to point out to them that in all of the major cities where there is a significant problem of violent crime among Blacks and Hispanics, those cities have been run by Democrats for 50 to 100 years at the level of the city council, the police chief, the mayor, the governor, and oftentimes
everybody in sight is a Democrat.
Yeah.
There's some sort of rumblings of revolt from Hispanic members, for example, of the Chicago, I don't think it's called the city council, they're aldermen. And I think there's great hope in the Hispanic community. And of course, the majority of Black people support the police, don't hate whites. It's just there's this virulent racism, there's a Ku Klux Klan level racism. And it's about as intellectually as respectable as Klan doctrine that affects, well, I would say most of the Blacks in the Democrat leadership, the ones they allow to run for office and get elected.
Yeah. So in addition to that.
Hello, hello? I don't know. Okay, yes, all right. Well, I wanted to explain that. We're remodeling the basement and got all kinds of suppliers and contractors.
And it's totally understandable. I wanted to ask you in connection to your last comment, what your thoughts are on Ketanji Brown Jackson. And
she's a nightmare. She doesn't believe in the Constitution.
Right.
She supports critical race theory, which says the Constitution is a white supremacist document and nobody should respect it. It's an utter disgrace that she was nominated, let alone the fact that she's going to be confirmed, let alone the fact that Susan Collins and other Republicans with their heads up to you know where are going to vote for her. It's terrible.
What do you think about Republicans? Some Republicans.
Is probably just as bad. These are just political activists who are brain dead Marxists, both of them. It's just ridiculous. But what's to be done?
Yeah. What puzzles me is, though, that there are a number of Republicans and even conservative and libertarian think tanks who support Ketanji Brown Jackson's confirmation. You hear some positive things from Cato Institute, from American.
Yeah, well, libertarian. I used to have a rule of not criticizing other conservatives, but they're out to lunch. You know, they've attacked me, so I get no support out of the libertarians, even though I'm as libertarian as conservatives,
Well,
to be.
yeah. What have they attacked you on out of curiosity?
I had a big knife stuck in my back by Ron Radosh and Saul Stern, two people I knew for 50, 60 years. And I wrote a refutation of their attack, showing how they lied, hadn't read my books. And the title was, my former friends have joined the fascists because they made a direct appeal to the IRS to shut us down. Now, what kind of an intellectual argument is that? The libertarians are supposed to believe in the free marketplace of ideas, right?
Right.
Well, Nick Gillespie, who's a poseur of the first water with his leather jackets and his, snide looks and remarks, he said it was a withering critique of me. That's all he said. It was a tweet. It was the most repeated tweet on my Twitter feed, of course, because leftists like to come and spread it around. So.
That's unfortunate to hear. I mean,
and I had a founder of the, I don't know if I should say all this in public. I'm really mad about it though. My lawyer was a founder of the Reason Foundation, and he could not get him to do a reasonable defense of me. Just a coward. I'll name him.
Well, the libertarian movement has also frustrated me to the extent that many of them support open borders on immigration.
We're idiots.
And are,
how much brains does it take to know that you can't survive as a country with open borders? And no other country in the world has open borders.
Right.
No major country. I don't know about all the little ones.
Yeah. So on that issue, Ann Coulter often says that the most important political issue of our time is illegal immigration. And if we can't fix that issue, say by building a wall that can reliably keep out illegal immigrants, and every other issue is
100,000 before Biden. There were already 100,000 criminals who got here illegally in our jails, violent criminals. They're rapists. It's just terrible. The Hispanic community in America doesn't like them.
Yeah.
This is the dregs of, hundreds of years of South American corruption and socialism.
Right. Yeah. That, and if you combine that, the massive tens of millions of illegal immigrants in the country with Democrats wanting to make.
They're still saying 11 million, it's got to be 20.
At least, I think Ann Coulter's estimate of at least 30 million, least 30 million is very accurate.
There are probably quite a few people who deserve asylum, but Biden has thrown that out the window. They're not vetting people to see if they're. We don't have any. There's no rules.
Yeah, yeah, and
chaos, anarchy, this barbarism. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And Biden has got this country hell bent towards becoming a barbarian society again. But I think the American people, as I say, they're resilient, and they'll fight. Well, they are fighting back.
Yeah, I think Biden is these days entirely a puppet of the left of his party. Like, I think
he's a basket case.
Doing everything he can to push a lot of the left there.
It's obvious the left is organized at that level.
Yeah.
I mean, contrast that, say, with Bill Clinton, who had his sister soldier moment, where he shut her down for her racism. But Biden encourages all the racists around him, and he is a racist. But of the It's part of his nature.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to understand how a lot of people don't seem to see that, or they give a pass to it or an excuse for it. And but one thing that really worries me is if Democrats ever manage to federalize the election laws, the election system in this country, and make mail-in ballots universal.
I wrote a whole book called The
That would
Enemy
be the end.
Within. I've written a whole book called The Enemy Within, which is about how the Democrats for the last actually several decades have been trying to change America into a one-party state. It is a fascist party. Its mentality is fascist, its methods are fascist, and its goal is fascist. And anybody who doesn't see that is just not looking at the facts. So, yeah, just the demonization of Trump. I mean, people, like Howard, as a big Howard Stern,
Blame Trump.
Will Smith to
Yeah.
Trump.
Right.
When did Trump curse somebody out, commandeer a huge national event, Academy Awards, for his personal, gripes about his wife?
Yeah. Do you think Donald Trump is going to run again and get elected?
I hope so. I think that DeSantis would make a really good president too, but Trump has been tested under fire. Well, so has DeSantis. But I think that, well, first of all, Trump's greatest contribution really is to create a grassroots mass movement of conservatives. It's never existed in this country before. That's the true hope. All those rallies he's done and organization that he's put together. But I think that people seeing how vicious Democrats are, and the number of Democrats, well, first of all, there's no real legislative Democrats that come forth and stand up for decency. Not even Manchin. What did he do? He called the critics of this woman who thinks the Constitution is a white supremacist document that shouldn't be respected and is now about to be on the Supreme Court. It was disgraceful that they questioned her about her pedophilia.
Manchin said that?
What?
Manchin said that? He criticized?
Yeah, he said it was disgraceful, the questions of her. It's Republicans are so polite. They say Democrats are soft on crime. They're pro-crime. They're pro-criminal. They see criminals as what Eric Hobsbawm called in a famous book, primitive rebels. They're redistributing income. That's why they're letting them out of jail. And they don't give a damn about how many people are maimed, killed, pushed off subway platforms in the process. The left is an evil formation. And it's because they have this fantasy of a redeemed world, that they're going to save the world. So that justifies any crime. And, my whole lifetime, I've watched the left justify, defend, and empower criminals. It's nothing new.
So I take it you're alluding mainly to the Soros-backed DAs in various major cities in the United States currently who got elected. And
well, it's not just the DAs. All those black mayors are racists who, it backfired. And like London Breed did 180, but that's after she did an enormous amount of damage in San Francisco. It's not just the prosecutor and the city councils. Well, it's still going. In Denver, they voted, I guess it was a court that gave $14 million to these Black Lives Matter criminals who tore up our streets and set fire to things.
Mhm.
because the police handled them too roughly. And I don't give a damn about all those people, political prisoners there in Washington from January 6th, and they're treating
Right.
terribly.
Yeah.
So it's not a moral issue with them. It's just those are their friends and allies.
Yeah. But so I mean, but with respect to these,
So, I don't know. I did a book called I Can't Breathe,
Mhm,
How
mhm,
Racial Hoax is Killing America.
right.
And Larry Elder, I quoted Larry Elder in it, pointing out the Freddie Gray case in Baltimore. I mean, you have a city government that's completely controlled by Black Democrat racists. The mayors are Black racists, the DA, just on and on. And they tried to frame 6 police officers. And the police officers were eventually exonerated. Everybody involved was Black. The judge that let them off, the prosecutor that tried to frame them, everybody and his mother were Black, and all Democrats, of course. And the same thing in Minneapolis. Black police chief, the city council's chair is Black, and I believe is the son of Keith Ellison, who's the attorney general for the state, was a Black racist Democrat, former spokesman for Louis Farrakhan. I mean, it's absurd. It's like a theater of the absurd. So it's not just Soros.
Mhm, mhm.
And why isn't Soros in jail? He's funded all these illegal demonstrations. Do they have a single parade permit? Come on. We're in a lawless time in our country. And the lawlessness is the work of the left, deliberate work of the left.
So what can conservatives or conservative movement do apart from
Stop
voting
saying
en masse?
soft on crime and explain why they are pro-crime and how dangerous they are and why they're fascist. Stop calling them liberals, for crying out tears. We're liberal. The Republican Party is a liberal party. The Democrat Party is a fascist party. Just as the Republican Party was a party that was created to free the slaves, and the Democrat Party was the party that defended slavery and instituted segregation, for crying out tears, and created these inner city hellholes that produce the kids who grow up in the inner city have very little chance of becoming anything but criminals. And that's all thanks to the Democrats. But who talks like this among Republicans?
Yeah, not too many, or it's usually not the politicians who talk.
So the first thing I would say is speak the truth. Tell it like it is. That's what we used to say in the 60s. Tell it like it is. Don't pussyfoot around it. Don't be polite. Don't protect feelings that you think you might hurt. You can't hurt their feelings. They justify to themselves their criminality because they're bringing about a better world. I mean, come on, wake up. I mean, I hate giving this advice because it's to mix it up with it in an ugly political arena, but you can't bring a fly swatter to a gunfight.
Yeah. Do you think DeSantis has this
I think
in
he
him?
understands it. I think there's a lot of people who do. I'm very impressed with the self-discipline of the right, that they haven't come out with their shotguns and tried to settle some of these scores. And I hope they don't.
Yeah. That of course is crucial. Do you think this Hunter Biden laptop story, now that it's becoming acknowledged by the left,
I think the Biden is going to go down big time. Yeah. I think if you were Cortez, you'd be upset with them.
Right.
So I don't think they're going to, once it starts unraveling, There's no stopping it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess there's a good chance then in the next couple of years or so, he could be impeached over what's in the
Well,
laptop. And
it's when they put Hillary in jail, you'll know that there's a progress being made. And all those people, I so agree with Getz.
Mhm.
Those, what is it, 51 intelligence officials are all traitors who lied about Hunter's laptop to get Biden elected. One of the greatest crimes of the Democrat Party after slavery is getting a mentally damaged racist like Joe Biden, giving him the nomination of their party and then rigging the election to get him in. And anybody, no serious person can think that that last election wasn't rigged. Just the laptop, just the suppression of the laptop story rigged that election. But if you look at the facts, you know, we're talking about, I don't remember the exact figure, but it's something like True the Vote turned up 137,000 illegal ballots in Wisconsin, a state I think Biden allegedly won by 11,000. He won by 0.027% of the vote. The only reason it was hard to fix was because he was a basement candidate and a mental case, which people could see. I mean, Trump, miraculously, Trump increased his vote by at least 11,000 votes, unprecedented in the history of American presidential elections. But Biden got, I forget what it is, but it's something like 12 or 15,000 more votes than Obama at his peak. Give me a break. You guys.
Yeah, million, yeah.
And what proves it is the cover-up. The Democrats have gone to war. In the article that Radash and Stern wrote, they attacked me for questioning. I hadn't even stated as in the way I'm stating now in my book that they didn't read, but they attacked. I didn't even say the election was rigged. I said it was problematic.
Right.
But the cover-up, the war, they said that I was a threat to democracy and had to be stopped at all costs for questioning an election. When we Democrats have questioned the certification of electors in every election since 1980 that a Republican won. Come on.
Yeah, I was listening to Larry Elder the other day, and he was pointing out that surveys found in 2018 that something like 78% of Democrats thought the 2016 election was stolen from Hillary Clinton by the Russians.
Yeah, all her lies.
There's a higher percentage.
All of Hillary's lies. She violated the espionage laws with her computers taken. You know, I happened to be, when I was a radical, editing Ramparts, we violated the espionage laws because an NSA operative, National Security Agency, walked into our office and revealed their code words and everything. And the New York Times covered up by pretending that they weren't the code words and so forth. But I was advised by a Harvard constitutional lawyer, how to commit the treason. And he said, you have to deny that there's any documents, because the law was written in 1918, refers to documents taken out of government buildings. So if you take a laptop out of the government building, that's the equivalent. So she violated the Espionage Act. And, you know, is allowed to go on defaming everybody who disagrees with her as a racist and a deplorable and whatever else she calls us.
Yeah. Surprising to think she might actually run in the next election against whoever the Republican is. And
don't count on it.
Yeah, I mean, I hope not, but yeah, I wouldn't put it past.
They're very cynical. And of course, Clyburn, who's responsible for the Biden nomination, is a Farrakhanite, head of the Black Caucus. Black Caucus is a racist caucus.
Right.
It's worse than a racist caucus. If you're Black and you're a Republican, they won't let you in. So it exploits, it exploits Blackness to support an ideology which is the greatest oppressor of Black people in our lifetime.
Yeah. Do you think
the lifetimes before us?
Yeah. Do you think the proliferation of Black conservatives in the public eye, like Larry Elder getting more attention and running for governor, Winsome Sears, right, in Virginia, I think it is, or West Virginia, and other Black conservatives, they'll make an impact in pushing through it?
Do I think what?
Do you think those Black conservatives will have a positive impact on
exposing
the hypocrisy?
Development. 30 years ago, there were several Black hustlers around the Republican Party who didn't have a community base and weren't very articulate. And now you have this generation of very articulate, courageous Black people who are Republicans and who do have a base in the community, and you can really get behind in a big way, and who are very courageous because of all the slanders thrown in their direction.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that could be a great way to expose the hypocrisy of the Democrats and the left when it comes to the issue of race, because like we saw with Larry Elder running for governor, all of the accusations that he's the black face of white supremacy and he's
They've been calling Republicans racists now for 30, 40 years. This is terrible. It started with H.W. Bush and the Willie Horton case, which people have forgotten. But Dukakis, who was a Democrat nominee and the governor of Massachusetts, let Willie Horton out on furlough, even though he was a violent criminal. I think he might have murdered somebody. And when he was on the furlough, he might have murdered a couple. It's a heinous crime. And the Democrats called the Republicans racist for criticizing Dukakis.
Yeah. I think you mentioned it also one of your pamphlets about
shameless. It's the shameless party.
Yeah. Yeah, you also mentioned that in the 70s, I think it was, George Herbert Walker Bush was giving a speech at the RNC, and a bunch of leftist activists went to Saul Alinsky and asked and told him how they
I wrote about this. Yeah, he said, put on white sheets and pretend that the Ku Klux Klan is supporting George Herbert Walker Bush, who had his faults, but he was an incredibly decent human being for a politician.
Yeah.
And probably for anybody. He was a decent man, and it's just disgusting what they did. But Democrats are disgusting.
Yeah.
I don't see how you can, just turn on your tube at night and watch the action and not come to that conclusion. When are they going to say they're sorry for the Russia hoax?
Right.
When are they going to apologize to Clarence Thomas for lynching him in his confirmation hearings?
Do you think there are any?
This Anita Hill, who they celebrate as a heroine, she was a civil rights lawyer who was a close friend of Clarence Thomas and then turned on him and pretended that she was oppressed because he told her, he referred to a pornographic film. Come on. She's a Yale lawyer, I think. And of course, she's been silent because she has nothing useful to say. Just a non-entity.
Do you think
and everything she alleged took place in a room where only those two were present.
Right.
talk about justice, not to mention Christine Blasey Ford,
Right.
an epic liar and character assassin who could invoked 4 eyewitnesses, none of whom remembered the incident she was talking about. Couldn't remember how she got home, couldn't remember where she was. I mean, it just, come on. And an event that happened, what, 35 years ago, when everybody was in high school? Jeez.
Yeah. Do you think there are any
You
decent?
realize how disciplined Republicans are not to mention these things all the time, and stupid. This is why we're losing. They're not fighting the battle.
Yeah.
I mean, not everybody,
Like,
some people are in marginal districts, but there's a lot of safe Republicans that are not saying, telling it like it is. There's a lot of power in these accusations.
yeah. But I'm curious, do you think there are any decent Democrats? Either among the voters or
what
the
level? Yeah, Tulsi Gabbard is a decent Democrat. I don't think she's really a Democrat anyway. Does the party have a place for decent Democrats? Not really.
But like, do you think the voters?
Why don't they stand up at
Yeah.
some of these atrocities that are taking place all the time? You know,
I think a lot of them are cowards too.
this racist Cory Bush called the January. Well, first of all, they're calling it an insurrection. Nobody was armed. Everybody who's dead was a Trump supporter. There's Capitol policemen murdered Ashley Babbitt. Where's the Democrat that stood up and objected to that? I asked for an investigation of the Capitol police officer. I forget his name. I think it's Byrd, who pulled the trigger. Gee. I mean, it's like we're in a surreal environment. It's like an alternate universe. And that's because our guys are so polite.
Do
And I think they're scared. I think they're cowards, basically.
Yeah. But do you think the voters of the Democratic Party are just as bad as the politicians?
No, I think most voters, most people don't pay attention to politics. The noise is of a minority, that political junkies. Most people don't understand, don't know what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
No. And the Democrats are very good at keeping them from understanding it. Disinformation, I like to call it.
Right.
I mean, Biden lies every time he opens his mouth. You know, I can't keep track of all his lies. He accused Trump of killing every coronavirus patient. I mean, they're big lies. They're not little lies when he tells them.
Yeah, that's true. That's certainly true. So, David, I want to be mindful of your time because it's
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock here. So I know you have to have dinner at some point. So maybe it's a good time to wrap it up here. And yeah, I want to say thanks so much for doing this interview, and really enjoyed your comments and this discussion. And I'm a huge fan of your work, and I'll definitely keep an eye out for your future interviews and books that you write. Do you have any upcoming books incidentally?
Yeah, I have one that's been delayed by the supply chain crisis called Final Battle. Why the next election could be the last. Which is, yeah, that plus The Enemy Within is one of my statements. Well, Blitz. I've written 3 or 4 books. Mm-hmm. So surprise to me, they've sold practically 1 million copies in hardback. So there's people out there who understand what's going on.
That's for sure. Well, I look forward to the upcoming book, Final Battle. That should be an important read. Yeah, so once again, thanks so much for the discussion. I really enjoyed it.
Okay, thank you for having me.